We're now going to begin the designing a controlled experiment notes. Please make sure that you have your notes in front of you and something to write with. So when we discuss experiments, we need to talk about like how and why we need to design controlled experiments. And this is mainly so that way we can test our hypothesis correctly. You must follow these certain rules when designing experiments to ensure that you can make valid, logical conclusions from your data. Without following these rules, your data is no longer going to be considered valid and you would have to do it over again. These controlled experiments have two parts. We have our experimental setup, and this is the part of the experiment that contains the variable, which is the factor being tested. So whatever you're trying to do the experiment on and change, this is going to be your variable. In a good experiment, only one variable is tested at a time. The second part of your experiment is the control setup. This is the part of the experiment that does not contain a variable. So we have our experimental setup that is testing whatever item factor that we are using in our experiment, and then we have the other setup that has none of that variable in it. The control setup is designed to eliminate hidden or unknown variables. In order to have a controlled experiment, you have to keep everything except the variable identical in both the experimental and the control setup. So if we are testing a certain fertilizer on the growth of plants, then you need to make sure that the pot is the same, the potting soil is the same, the amount of water, the amount of sunlight, the type of plant, the size of the plant, all of these have to be identical in both your experimental setup and your control setup. All of these things that are identical are called the constants. Please pause the video now and go complete the Skittles lab. Please do not go forward in this video until you have completed that lab. Alright, in your notes, I need you to fix something where it says example problem, do plants need light to grow? I want you to cross out that problem and I want you to write this problem instead. What effect does water have on Skittles? So our background information here, Skittles are made of sugar in many colors. So this is our background information that's dealing with our problem. Then you should have created a hypothesis. Yours may have looked something like this. I think all the Skittles will change colors. Okay, you should have had it in an if-then statement. Yours was probably much better than this. Then our experiment is going to be the Skittles lab. And these are the setups that you had. So go ahead and draw these into your notes, the experimental setup and the control setup. Be sure to label which one has water. Your variable is the water. The constants would be the number and the types of Skittles, the size of the petri dish, the temperature of the water, and the amount of time that you watched them. These should have all been constants as part of your experiment. So the conclusion that you should have come to after completing this lab is that we determined that the water will make the color of the Skittles run and the Skittles get soft. As an extra side note, I want you to continue this conclusion. I want you to tell me why the Skittles run and they get soft. So fill that in, and then that will conclude these notes.